I'm disappointed in Congress. Once again, we've failed to do what we promised the American people we would do, is appropriate an amount of money to secure our southern border. We've kicked the can down the road.
Welcome back. That was the House Freedom Caucus chair, Mark Meadows, expressing his unhappiness with the border deal reached last night by the Congressional Conference Committee. In an effort to avoid another shutdown, President Trump criticized the deal today, but stopped short of saying he wouldn't sign it. Joining me now is Kentucky Democratic Congressman John Yarmuth. He is the chairman of the House Budget Committee. And we invited you here, Congressman. First of all, good to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
We invited you on here. Just sort of curious where Democrats go from here when trying to deal with the president. On one hand, if Mark Meadows is complaining, and Joaquin Castro, who went on Morning Joe this morning, a Democratic congressman from San Antonio, says he doesn't want to support this bill because he thinks it gives the president too many, particularly when it comes. He doesn't want any new fencing. Is that a success or a failure?
I think this is a great success, and primarily from two standpoints. One, for the American people, because government's going to reopen, or going to stay open. And the second one is that I think it restores a little bit of the stature of Congress, because it is a message that we can negotiate, we can compromise, and we can get something done.
But does it do the job? I mean, you just gave two good things. We're not shutting down the government, and Congress is showing that you can't roll over. Okay, but what about the substance?
Well,
is it a good bill or not?
It wouldn't be the bill we would write, obviously, as Democrats. But as part of the bill, we got enhanced humanitarian aid at the border, more food, more health care for the migrants. We've got more judges working. We're going to have enhanced protection at the border crossings. So a lot of the things that we've been pushing for that again, will treat people as human beings on the border, we got. And I think that's a plus.
So if the president just says, I'm going to sign it and I don't care, I'm end running you, some diehard Democrats are going to say, why'd you bother? What's your answer to that?
It's a good question. But Democrats believe that government serves an important purpose in this country. And, I've got in my district, we all have TSA workers. I've got a Census Bureau office that's actually across the river from me, but 1,700 employees in my market. Yeah. They were furloughed for 5 weeks. These are very, very important things. We have IRS people in tax season who are furloughed. This is something that's important to us. We want to make sure the government runs effectively. That's what we do. If we're the party of government, and I accept that moniker, then we should want it to work right. And this is part of that.
Do you feel as if congressional Republicans do want to make deals if the president wasn't involved?
On certain things.
Yeah? Like where could you... Let's say the president said, I'm taking a 6-month sabbatical. What could a divided government, a Democratic House and a Republican Senate, realistically get done without his involvement?
Well, I think we actually can use his involvement if we're going to try to do something on infrastructure, and I think both sides want to do that. Prescription drug pricing, I think we want to do. I don't think you can trust him, no.
So then how do you do, that's what I'm trying to figure out. How do you construct, yes, he may be with the Democratic point of view on infrastructure and the prescription drug prices, but look at the various ways that he's been deceptive about whether there isn't even a wall. And do you trust it? What do you do?
I think you have to go about your business. We now know that we have 2 veteran legislators in charge of the House and the Senate. We have Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell who understand the way the institutions work, and they can work together to get things done. And
I have to pause there. That is an interesting. You actually have, if McConnell and Pelosi were running things, you think we could be a pretty functional Congress?
It would be much more functional, yeah, than it's been. Because both of them understand the need to compromise. I mean, look at Nancy Pelosi. She said not a dollar for the wall. Well, obviously she's giving on that. She understood that. I said the same thing. No, nothing for the wall. But those are starting positions in the bargaining. The problem is you never know where President Trump is, and you don't know even when he says where he is. We met, I was one of a group of bipartisan members of the House who went to Camp David time with Mick Mulvaney, and I think we could have solved virtually every problem, including the Middle East, in that setting. And even with Mick Mulvaney, if he had been president, I think we would have had a good deal.
He's a guy that seems to want to cut deals now. Yeah. No, there's no doubt. I mean, I
know, it's strange.
Everybody around the president seems to want to do this. And that's why I'm wondering, though, is there a way that is there a way, if the president vetoes this, what does this mean legislatively? I guess I look at this and assume you guys aren't doing anything in 19 together. If this is the way this ends, why will anything happen? Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, no, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, because I think the way we're approaching 2019 is with no expectations that we'll get anything done.
But you've made a big promise to take over the House.
Right.
I mean, you need, like, I take health care. I feel like if there's one promise you have to be caught keeping, it's that one.
We are going to pass a lot of very important pieces of legislation through the House, starting with universal background checks. We're going to deal with an infrastructure bill. We're going to work on health care. We're going to do something with prescription drug prices. I don't know whether we're going to be expanding health care or expanding Medicare, but we'll be talking about that. And what our goal is to show over the next 2 years what a Democratic-controlled government would look like. Display our vision for the country.
You feel that that's one of your jobs in the 2019 year is to show the country, if you elect a Democrat president, this is what the agenda is going to look like.
Exactly. And to show that we can govern. And, I think we have 6-8 months to actually demonstrate that, to pass things through the House, pass things that are reasonable, pass things that clearly represent our values, but also what we think are mainstream American values.
I've watched your career for quite some time. There's a time when you entered Congress, you would have been thought of as one of the more liberal members of Congress. Yeah. I don't think that is the case today. Let me ask you this. As somebody who's tried to sell progressive politics in a fairly conservative state, although Louisville is certainly a swing area of that state, this debate about Medicare for all, give some advice to these presidential candidates. How would you be selling Medicare for all nationally? Is it something you think you do right away, or is it aspirational and something you incrementally build to?
Well, first of all, this is a very delicate topic because Medicare for all means different things to different people.
And thank you for saying that. I do think that title being hijacked has sort of messed up with the definition
and
of Medicare.
I've talked to Pramila Jayapal, who has the most expansive bill. That hers is Bernie Sanders plus, because she adds long-term care and vision and dental, and so it's universal health care for everyone on demand with no contribution.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah. So she wants to call it Medicare for all. I understand that because that's a good brand. Medicare is a good brand. But there's also a proposal to make Medicare a public option so everybody would have the opportunity to buy into it.
Right.
And also to expand it to 50 or 55 years old. So we're going to hold hearings in the Budget Committee on the budgetary implications of all of them, the wide range of possibilities, so that the public will have a sense of what's in it for them, possibly, whether it's going to cost them more or not.
You are basically going to be the ombudsman for the health care bills for the presidential race.
Right.
This I look forward to, John Yarmuth.
Thank you.
You will be my assistant in trying to figure out these Democratic plans.
We look forward to it also.
That is a great thing to know. Thank you, John Yarmuth, Chair of the Budget Committee. Good to see you, sir.
Thanks, Chuck.
Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.